We just got very good news for NIO. You can see that Shanghai city is subsidizing battery swap stations. I think it's 40% excluding the cost of the battery itself for those stations that can support multiple car variants and multiple brands. And for those that cannot support that variation, they are getting 20% subsidies, excluding the actual battery. And there are some others bits and pieces in there as well. This makes also Shanghai the second city after Hefei that offers this kind of support. Hefei is, the local town that a lot of new cars are built in. So it's gonna be really, needed, needed push from the different communities and cities, which can help NIO starting to stabilize their sales. As we know, they haven't had the greatest start of the year. Again, we always know that January and February are a little bit bad, especially for NIO, but also the others. You can see here that the first reported 9 weeks of the year, NIO in the red. Started the year kind of okay, but yeah, I would say end of January and the entire of February was bad, partly due to the Chinese New Year. But still, they were like more affected by the Chinese New Year than the other companies out there. We also know obviously that Xpeng cars is much lower in price, so you shouldn't expect the same kind of delivery numbers. But still, also to other very important news, we can know that NIO is making organizational changes to focus more on cost control, some reports say. I think this organizational change is very much needed. They're gonna focus on maybe more the supply chain. I think CEO Lee Bean will be actually involved in purchasing and price management through the suppliers and second tier suppliers and also battery manufacturers. That's good to know. But going to some other stuff, I think if you remember, maybe a lot of you have forgot that they actually make phones. A decision that I completely disagree with. I think it's not the best money spent for NIO right now, especially in a stage of their company where they're losing a lot of money and seemingly necessarily doesn't have any kind of cost control compared to even like their peers like Xpeng. There is a reason why Xpeng stock price has been doing so well over the past year. Look at the 52-week range from 6 to 24, and NIO is still stuck at almost sometimes even touching $3, right? Less than $4. So there's a reason for that. I think people are seeing Xpeng getting close to profitability, much more realistic than NIO. And there are some of the facts that we cannot dispute. You can see, for example, going to the earnings. So in Q3 of last year, they had 61,855 deliveries, right? And then in Q4 increased that to 73,796. Now the issue is that they still have to report the Q4 earnings. They've reported the deliveries, but they haven't still reported the earnings, and we are very close to the actual, Q2. We are already just a couple of weeks from Q2, maybe 3 weeks. So it's quite, worrying that they still have not specified a date for the Q4 report. Now, my suspicion is, I explained it in my last video, my target was around 80 to 85,000 deliveries for Q1 of 2025, but seemingly looking at the delivery numbers that they had in January and in February, look at this here, around 13,800 and 13,200 for each of those 2 months, with a combined deliveries around 27,000. It's a huge stretch to believe that they would get anywhere close to those kind of numbers, 84,000 for Q1, that I was hoping for, just 4 or 5 months ago, right? So I have to revise this number down to probably 50,000, maybe 55, potentially 60, but not like anything above 60. Because remember, at 27,000 right now, they will need to do 33,000 in March. And we already have the first week of March deliveries. Let's go look and see what those numbers are. So the first week of March of this year, at least the first couple of days, which is part of this 4,900 numbers for Classic NIO and Onvo. Remember that a few days of those are in February, so you could argue that, let's say if we go with 1/3 of them, so 1,500 in the first 2 days of March, I would say, around 700 to 800 cars per day. That's a good pace, but that's not gonna be a pace of 35,000 deliveries in order to get NIO to 65,000 in obviously Q1, which is still well below my expected numbers that I had, late last year. But even that is probably too much demanded, right? I think even if they now get 25,000 in March, I would be very, very happy, right? And that would put us at around 50 to 55,000 deliveries, which means the total revenue here estimate is gonna go way, way lower, much lower than Q4. Probably gonna end up, I'm just guessing now, let's say 2.6, maybe, yeah, I would say 2.6 billion. That's not a good sign. That also potentially risk the fact that we're gonna have a net loss situation that, yeah, they're gonna burn at least half a billion again. That's that quarter, and that's not something that we want to see, because remember, the reason, in my opinion, Xpeng is going up recently in the past year is due to the fact that everyone can see that they are like really running towards profitability, most likely. And if Neo in this quarter comes now with whatever, like half a billion, 600 or 700 million in net loss, in addition to that, gives a extremely weak guidance of Q1 deliveries, right? I think, yeah, actually, sorry, I said something wrong there. They already gave the guidance of Q1, but I'm telling you, like, the actual Q1 delivery is gonna be around 50 to 60,000, well below the expected numbers before, 2 or 3 months ago. But also, this means that in Q1, in the next earnings, they're gonna have a guidance for Q2 as well, I would suggest, and that's gonna be something really interesting. I don't think they're gonna kind of do any bold statements. Remember, Neo has a habit of having these very like bold statements. Let's go to the one of recent ones. Remember this one? I think everyone remembers the supposed 16,000 Onvo deliveries in January and 20,000 in March. And we didn't have any of those, achievements. How many deliveries did Onvo manage in January? So let's go to the weekly insurance registration numbers. We can see that Onvo on line 5 here, they managed to do in January, they managed to do 1800, 1900, 1200, 1400, and 23. Yeah, I would say around, give or take, 7 to 8,000, right? Maybe 9,000. That's what they did. So around half of the numbers of what they actually were guiding for just few weeks before that. So again, there are some good, some bad. Valuation of Neo companies still is very low. That's the only thing that is positive, I would say, because the valuation is to such a low level that it doesn't require a whole lot to make this company and the stock price go up. And if we are seeing this, subsidies and help from the Shanghai and Hefei cities maybe expand into more cities, we also see that they're making organizational changes. But again, maybe some other YouTubers, my fellow YouTubers, are a little bit more positive on this news. I'm more like, after everything this management has done, I'm more like, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. Let's be cautious. Let's see if they actually mean business. Because it's so easy to talk. And remember, Neo management talks a lot. Recently, again, do not forget that they literally just weeks ago said they were gonna deliver 16,000 onvos in or something in that like very, at least maybe they wouldn't say like flat out that they were supposed to deliver that, but I think the way they said it was like, they were very confident of doing 16k. So I'm not saying that they're manipulating, of course they're not, but they're just, the CEO, in my opinion, needs to like get in all these people around him and make them know that stop with all these, false hopes. Like, deliver, under deliver, and over promise is not a good way of it. They should like under promise and over deliver, right? That's what we wanna see. So hopefully we're gonna see a change of attitude, some first sign potentially of that today. But again, I want to see like actual facts about this rather than news. But yeah, so if you look at that, I'm finally looking at the lithium carbonate price, still stuck around this kind of low levels, very good to see. But generally the market is, taking a beating. Funnily enough, Neo is the only one just turned positive for the moment. So at least that's a good thing. But if you go to the other, segments of the market, going to the semiconductor space, it's just, red as far as the eye can see. I mean, ARM is down like 7%, AMD 2.5%, Intel 3.5%, And going to the other competitors in terms of automotive, I find it very interesting that Tesla is down almost 14% today. And interestingly, Tesla's sales fell to 26,777 in China. So despite NIO performing, in my opinion, bad in February, in that scenario, they still, managed to sell 50% of what Tesla sold in February. So it's not doom and gloom. It's just that, Xpeng is just performing on a whole lot of a different level, right? Again, with the caveat that they have much lower price per cars they are selling. So of course we would expect Xpeng to have better numbers. But then again, you would turn it again and say, yeah, sure, they are cheaper, but they seem to have much better control on the cost structure. Despite them having lower average sales price, you would want to see the company, in this case NIO, that have higher ASP to actually have a better margins. And they kind of have better margins, but then again, we have the problem of the battery swap stations. They cost a whole lot. I think NIO's vehicle margin is quite substantially higher than Xpeng over the past 2-3 years. But it's just, the battery swap stations. But luckily enough, we can see that the swaps infrastructure is also, there is some uptake there for sure. And NIO is actually seeing quite strong utilization of the swap station. If we go to that infrastructure tab, we can see that they doubled essentially the average daily swaps compared to this time of last year in 2024. We were at 55,000. Now we are just around 100,000. But then again, the fleet increased by 70-80%. This means that the daily swaps is going up per station, or i.e. it also means that there is lesser and lesser cars per number of swaps, right? So more and more of the owners of the cars are utilizing that, and we can see that in average swaps per station, which was in early last year at around low 20s. Now we are in the low 30s. So we are moving in the right direction. And I do say, to summarize all of this, they have enough money on hand. I just want them, to, for once, slow it down a little bit and be conscious of their spending. I don't want to see any NIO phone that they're gonna sell 50,000 again. How are you gonna make money on a phone business of 50,000? I remember the days where we had LG and HTC selling millions of phones and still not being able to compete. So I have a hard time believing that the phone business of NIO is making any money anytime soon. So hopefully this news here about organizational change is actual going to fruition and leads to real change. But anyway, so thanks for your time. Please like and subscribe. It would help me a lot. I'm struggling I'm trying to fight to get to the 1,000 subscribers. And so thank you for your time again, and see you in the next one.